Biolabs are bad.
What?
Biolabs are real bad. You know why?
This is a peaceful treaty. I looked it up on Wikipedia.
You did? And what did it say?
And we work with a lot of nations on joint medical labs.
Like
that
Ukraine?
are biolabs.
Like Ukraine?
Yes, and we're worried that Russia might get their hands on these dangerous cures for diseases we were peacefully working on.
It's funny that you say that and you talk about Russia, because now Russia has they made their complaint to the UN that the U.S. is avoiding treaties, breaking treaties, and doing unlawful and illegal testing on bioweapons and whatnot. Now,
but Russia did it with us too until they abruptly said we're not doing this with you anymore.
Exactly,
in 2015.
right? But here's another thing. Now China has now brought something to the UN and complained about that. Now I'm showing this clip over here not because that's my business partner Fiorella Isabella and we do the Combo Couch on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can go check us out. But she's in actual Moscow, so she's getting like from the horse's mouth information. This is a special they ran on RT the other day. This is what's going on. Take a look at this because this is really important, because we had, once again, biolabs in the Ukraine.
They're peaceful. They're just peaceful
sure.
biolabs.
Listen, we played Victoria Nuland saying they're research facilities, but when the Russians get them, then they become dangerous biolabs.
Why did we put our research facilities in the most corrupt country in Europe, of Ukraine? That seems weird. Why would we put them out there? Yeah. Important research like that. It seems odd. Maybe because it's easy to experiment on people. I'm just throwing that out there as a guess.
Or do illegal testing and whatnot. But here's RT playing the biological threats. Take a listen.
Russia's Ministry of Defense has released a statement revealing the murky activities of the United States military. The ministry says that Washington's Office of Pandemic Preparedness and Response Policy searches for virus mutations to then use them to further its own interests.
As in 2019, the United States began preparing for a new pandemic by searching for virus mutations. We do not exclude the use by the United States of these so-called defensive technologies for offensive purposes, as well as for the purpose of global management by creating crisis situations of a biological nature.
According to the ministry, Washington has been amassing various pathogens from its direct involvement with various biolabs around the world, which they say are for research and preventative measures, but Russia's defense ministry is not buying that. And they point out that whenever the Pentagon, for example, is interested in any pathogens, be it COVID-19 or avian influenza or the African swine flu, they later somehow end up becoming pandemic. And who stands to benefit from this? As we've seen time and time again, it's American pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, if it is defensive and preventative, how come they never prevent or defend from it happening, and it happens a lot?
Well, that's what they say. They said they have to create the cure, but to create the cure, they have to create the problem. That's the whole quagmire they give us with. We have to do this because in case there's a pandemic, we have to be ahead and we have to have the vaccine ready. But to do so, they have to create the problem. And at the end of the day, isn't it such a coincidence that it's the military-industrial complex getting spending a shit ton of money, and who gets that money? Big Pharma, baby. All the products that are created goes into the pockets of Big Pharma.
Can I put on my Bill Maher glasses and give my analysis? Why are people living so close to animals?
Yeah.
That's the Bill Maher level. This whole lab and thing, I promise you people aren't even connecting biolab with lab leak. They're like, no, those are probably fine. Someone had a pangolin too close.
Yeah.
I have a question though. Why did Russia and China, if they have all this intelligence on us, and fair enough, they participate in lockdowns. China went real hard with lockdowns.
Because here's the thing, because this is something else I wanted to point out, is that the fact that the United States is going to other countries to do this and stuff so they can get pathogens where they can get weapons that go directly to your specific DNA. So in other words, they were saying that they wanted to get on the Russian border so they can get Russian DNA so they can create a bioweapon that is designed for Russian people. And that's a lot of the situations when people were saying when they were doing these draconian lockdowns in China is that they were first afraid that this was a weapon created for Han people, the majority of the Chinese people there. So they went with the draconian lockdowns. But the only difference is, Kurt, is that when they treated people with hydroxychloroquine, chloroquine, vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc. They actually gave people therapeutics that that healed them and sent them home. I had Dr. Meryl Nass on my show yesterday on the Convo Couch, and we went into this. We talked about this. It was very different than the treatment you got in the United States. That's why it's confusing to me to kind of just look at China's position, because there's people in the United States that are blaming the Chinese for this virus and not blaming EcoHealth and knowledge.
I was at first, because it was in a Wuhan lab.
Yeah.
And that was a real twist that we were paying them to do that. So that's really threw me for a loop. But
it's a military installation, by the way.
What was the thing where all those people yelling out the buildings because they were locked in and starving?
Because they had draconian lockdowns there in China.
Oh, okay.
But that doesn't, but once again, they were treating people with therapeutics. They were possibly afraid that it was a specifically designed DNA bioweapon to hurt them. Yeah, that's why that's the excuse I heard when they went to Cuba, when they locked down the aisle. They didn't know if it was designed specifically for them.
So all these countries know. I mean, it's wild that I just now, and I want to be careful before I would ever accuse the United States Defense Department of inventing something so terrible. I mean, I don't want to just be loose and malinformation, but all these countries know to be afraid of this, that we might have this weapon that we're using on them. All of them do it, and nobody here knows about it.
Well, here's the thing. Once we do it, they have to do it. If we have a subfleet, they got to build a subfleet. If we build bioweapons, they got to build bioweapons. And this is something that we brought to the show the other day with RFK, talking to Tucker about it, kind of laying out how this goes, because people don't pay attention to it. When it came to the anthrax situation, when it came to the Patriot Act, how Patriot Act opened the door for more bioweapons testing, and also, how that money was kicked to Anthony Fauci. And Fauci was able to fund this stuff, and he took a lot of his show on the road. He took it obseeds to other places, including Ukraine.
Well, thank you for your service, doctor.
So this right over here, this is crazy here. I'm going to look over here because it's too small on my screen. It says America was targeting Russians using our 30 known United States Ukraine biolabs, and we're specifically doing solicitations for Russian Caucasian synovial tissue and RNA samples for a weapon. So this is what they found, because they went in there and I have a clip right now of our national intelligence director coming up next too as well, just like Victoria Nuland. They're moonwalking, and they're walking it back when they got busted. They were doing this, and the American people didn't know. This is a war crime. Evidence has been sent to the United Nations by Russia. And you can see right here, they have all the information. Now, I know United States Air Force, they went into some of these labs. They grabbed their paperwork. They grabbed their tests. They grabbed their samples. They have a case.
Oh, this is what they gave the UN?
This is what they gave to the UN. This is the case they are building, and it says right here, Russian Caucasian. In other words, they were trying to make bioweapons, and this is something that was talked on about Alex Jones for quite some time, when people were like, no, this isn't true, right? They were making chemical weapons, biological weapons that are designed for certain person's DNA.
Wait, I have Russian DNA partially.
Well,
how much you have to have before it's not good?
I have no clue. Okay, now listen. In that one hearing with Victoria Nuland and Marco Rubio, was pretty much she was doing the moonwalk. Well, they're research facilities, but if they are caught, and I believe it's war clandestine.
She had no choice but to eat, because she didn't want to say biolabs, right?
I don't think she wanted to. I mean, I can't get inside Victoria Nuland's head. But the whole thing is that when these biolabs were seized, they had the paperwork to them. They were funded by the Pentagon. They were not getting away from this. That's why they had to change their story. I believe his name is War Clandestine on Twitter. It's a whole thread, guys. If you want to see it, it lays it out beautifully from the time we started. These were being accused that we were having bases over there, and the United States was trying to avoid it. This is our National Intelligence Director, Avril. I think it's Avril Lavigne. No, it's not. Avril Haines.
I hope it is.
Avril Haines. Avril Lavigne. Avril Haines talking, and watch. This is pretty much a person that is busted.
For biodefense, you can think about things like medical countermeasures, for example, things that will help you to address a pandemic that is an outbreak in your country, things along those lines, things that prevent spreading of pandemics and other health issues. Things along those lines. And the kinds of biosafety pieces that you would be providing assistance for are things like making sure that as you're producing medical countermeasures, that you're taking appropriate precautions, that you're letting the medical community internationally know, notifying.
As you're doing gain of function testing, medical counterproductions. As you're doing this testing that is against international law, you just let the community know what's going on in Ukraine.
When appropriate. So that's the kind of assistance. But I, again, just, want to be absolutely clear that we do not believe that Ukraine is pursuing biological or nuclear weapons, that we've seen no evidence of that.
You're doing it. That's why.
Countermeasures, Kurt. Countermeasures.
No, don't you dare blame Ukraine. You mean the things you put there?
Yes.
Don't you dare blame China for the Wuhan thing. That was us.
Yes.
Hey, leave China alone. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
And frankly, this influence campaign is completely consistent with longstanding Russian efforts to accuse the United States.
Russian efforts, baby.
Well,
it's classic Russian propaganda.
They have the paperwork. I mean, what's going to happen at the UN, though? Was UN? Do we own the UN?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen to the UN.
States of sponsoring bio weapons work in former Soviet Union. So this is a classic move by the Russians.
So I think the one thing that's piqued a lot of people's interest, and I hope we can address, is Assistant Secretary Nuland said a couple days ago in response to my question at another hearing, this is her quote, "The U.S. government is concerned about preventing any of these research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach," end quote. So people will hear that and say, well, that means that there must be something in these labs that's very dangerous. They possess pathogens or something that must be very dangerous. Look, we're all coming off the trauma of COVID-19. The possibility that there might have been an accident or a leak out of a lab there that we still don't know the answer to. And so it's in that context that people read that statement or hear it and say, okay, it sounds to me like they have labs. These labs are working on dangerous things, and we're worried that it's going to get out of the laboratory. How should people assess that statement? Why are we so concerned? And again, I mean, I know maybe I'm asking you some questions that regard medicine and biology and research and so forth, but it's really important for this effort to understand what exactly is in these labs that we're so worried about them getting their hands on.
Sure. I mean, I think medical facilities that I've certainly been in, and even as a child, done research, in high school type of thing in college.
What?
She said, well, kind of like, I've done high school research.
And we were afraid
these other things that are dangerous that you can't let them, if they're not used by the proper people, whatnot, they can. Such as what?
All have equipment or, sort of pathogens or other things that you have to have restrictions around because you want to make sure that they're being treated and handled appropriately. And I think that's the kind of thing that probably Victoria Nuland was describing and thinking about in the context of that. We have to be, concerned in the same way that we have to be concerned about Enerhodar, the nuclear power plant, or, other facilities that when they're seized and if they're seized, that there may be damage done or theft, and they may, in fact, misuse some of the material that's there that's not intended for weapons purposes, but nevertheless can be used in dangerous ways or that can create challenges for the local populations.
So it's, oh my
what
God.
What the hell was that? What?
So you have dangerous pathogens that you're keeping there, and
no, anything dangerous like gasoline was there or alcohol. It could be used in the wrong way. So when the Russians get in there, I mean, that's what they're implying. They're trying to say they're not trying to say that it was pathogens there. They were just trying to say it was just normal.
She finally said it. She took all that time to finally say, but like, which ones, Miss?
Yeah,
which pathogens are there?
The Chinese now are making the same claim, and this is the thing I struggle with. A lot of people want to still blame, dude. Dr. Malone went on Steve Bannon's channel and pretty much confessed the fact that it was intelligence apparatuses working alongside the Chinese to release the COVID-19.
That scares me. Why would China work together with us for this? That's like really creepy.
Well, there's a whole kind of avenue over there too as well about Mao's history and Xi Jinping's history. And, there are people out there like, well, for instance, like, obviously that kind of crew, the Bannonite crew, they want to blame China on everything. If something happens, they want to blame China on everything. Like he was about to cry, Steve Bannon, when Dr. Malone told him it was our intelligence apparatus working with China along together, hand in hand to release China. However, Malone said he even wanted to believe that it was possibly China doing it, but now he understands that this is a homegrown thing. Dr. McCullough is one of those guys who always said this is a homegrown virus and stuff. But there is some theories of us working together hand in hand. There's a whole theory about Xi Jinping and whatnot.
Okay, I know we work hand in hand with. This is why I never understand the thing with China.
Yeah,
because for the last, I don't know, my entire adult life, we were just sending our jobs there and having them do. And I hear a vague excuse of like, well, we thought they would become Americans. I don't think you thought that. but so if we're going to war with them, why are we sending our jobs and everything over there, our manufacturing and our important biolab research?
I have a hard time understanding that too as well, why China would take it in right now. But what I do know is that China has not been accused of having not only just biolabs, but military bases. Like they got 2 of them all around the country. You know, how many biolabs do we have out there? You know, we've had 800 bases around the country that we know of, outside of the country, excuse me. We have 8, you know what I'm saying?
Didn't know we even
so we have a
had
history
this.
of this. We have a history of this. So, you know, what China's role is, we don't know. But here are the Chinese publicly, right, that they're coming out and they're saying the United States is not playing ball. They're not standing by the treaties. They're breaking international law, and they need to be held to account. So I'm going to read as this gentleman speaks. According to open sources, dozens of biolabs in Ukraine operated under the U.S. Department of Defense's command. These activities severely lack transparency while having undeniable safety risk. Previously, many locations of U.S. overseas biolabs saw outbreaks of rare infectious diseases, triggered protests and questions in multiple countries. These are the important reasons the U.S. biolabs in Ukraine arouse broad concern in the international society. What is the real intent of this U.S. research projects? Why doesn't the U.S. disclose details related to these research projects? What is the relationship between the U.S. overseas biolabs and its Department of Defense? If the U.S. did nothing but scientific research and disease surveillance in the labs in Ukraine, why is the Department of Defense deeply involved? Okay? For the past 20 years, the U.S. alone has been opposed to building a multilateral verification system under biodynamic whitening complex. Why? The United States owes the world a clear explanation of these 5 questions. We urge the U.S. to side. We urge the U.S. side to take an open, transparent, and responsible attitude, seriously respond to the concerns of the international community, earnestly fulfill its convention obligations, and give a full account of its biological military activities at home and abroad.
So when they destroyed all that evidence at the Wuhan lab, you know, and could that have been to hide, not protect China, to protect us?
Say that again now.
The evidence, you know, the Wuhan lab, they got inspected and they weren't allowed to see all the data and it got destroyed and all that. Was that to protect us? Because I didn't know the Department of Defense was involved.
Yes.
Like now people go, we don't know. It might have been a lab leak. Okay. So
it might have been.
So, okay. I never thought it was not a lab leak. Okay. But when it came out that the Department of Defense is involved in Wuhan, I'm like, case closed. Yeah. Why the hell is a military involved in that at all? And we couldn't get the data out them destroying it, and the Department of Defense is involved in this research. That's to protect us, I bet. That's not to protect China.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. Here's the Chinese accused the U.S. of starting biological war. Chinese Foreign Minister spokesman Wang said the United States creates biological threats to advance its geopolitical plans. When it comes to biosecurity threats, the U.S. is the most active and suspicious country, the Chinese diplomat said. And he pretty much said the same thing.
Why did you guys allow us to come to your country and do that after Obama said don't do it here? That's what I don't understand with this.
That is the hardest thing to understand, Kurt. What is the role they played? You know what I'm saying? But here's the thing.
Friends, what is this?
But here's the thing that people don't understand. Everybody thinks that the Chinese government has a say over everything that happens, that it knows everything that happens. No, it doesn't. It has a huge banking system, bigger than ours. In fact, they execute their bankers when they do something fraudulent.
No, and I know, and that's why a lot more, you'd be surprised the crazy corruption that can happen because the stakes are so high for these people in provinces. Like this, the incentive to hide if you do a crime is enough to like kill civilian witnesses and do all kinds of. It's funny to see, like, because you're like, I wish they'd hang the bankers here when they do that stuff. But you might see some wacky things start happening if these guys are really afraid that the people on top, here are the consequences. The people on top won't give you your free drink out of the trough that you've been taking with your false information. There, you can get executed. So there's more incentive even in the compartmentalized leadership. There's more incentive at the bottom to hide from the top.
From the top. Yeah. That makes 100% sense. And also, too, as well, China has a more home ownership per capita than the United States does. It has more small business ownership per capita than the United States. Everybody thinks that if something happens from China, it's coming directly from the Chinese Communist Party's Xi Jinping and overlooking things. It's not like that.
It also
has its own factions, its own things going on.
It also has less welfare than the United States.
By far now. Well, they make everything. They fix everything.
Like, I didn't understand
central planning work for them.
Like how socialist utopia we are compared to China as far as the government helping you out. I always wonder if Republicans know that when they're talking about China. That's your dream over there, dude. They don't give out welfare like we do. We don't give out very much at all.
Carl Zah said on my show, he says, the American dream is alive and well. It's just alive in China. Think about it. We'll be right.
Dude, it was like an 80s movie. I didn't see anything resembling communism at all. What I saw is a bunch of people that were really into like material stuff, like jackets with a label, like the price tag hanging off it. And they're clearly, I saw an Ed Hardy, this girl had an Ed Hardy jacket in the hotel in front of me.
This is when you went to China.
And she had and they all liked Trump. This is before he kept like really, even when he was kind of talking about them, they don't have no problem with that. Now I don't think they like as much. But she had a, I don't know, 10,000 yuan or whatever the money is thing hanging off her jacket.
Yuan, yeah.
And it was a fake, clearly a fake Ed Hardy jacket. I was like, this is it was like an 80s movie.
Yeah.
Hey, come see us on Live on Tour. We're doing a show in New York City, Pottstown, Pennsylvania, Stamford, Connecticut, Toledo, Rochester, Michigan. That's just outside of Detroit. St. Louis, Tampa, Florida, Boca Raton, Florida, and Orlando, Florida. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.